Early in the morning on June 29th, a fire started near the Aspen Acres subdivision. That's kind of near Rye and San Isabel, Colorado. And it started to move quite rapidly. By about 9 o'clock in the morning, here in Beulah, we had a mandatory evacuation order, and we had to get out of here pretty quickly because it was a fast-moving, wind-driven fire. It's certainly the worst fire we have ever had in this area, at least in my memory. Today it is July 15th. We were evacuated for a full 2 weeks. We're allowed to come back in now, but we aren't actually moved back in because we don't have any power. And without power, we can't pump water, which means you can't flush a toilet, and we don't have propane because the propane line coming out of the tank is a little bit singed and burned. So that needs to be replaced before we can reestablish propane to be able to cook. So there's a lot of inconvenience with being here, and so far the friends we're staying with about 5 miles from here don't really mind us being there. At least they say they don't, so I hope we're not overstaying our welcome. I'm hoping power gets restored. Propane is not that big a deal. We can cook with electricity if we need to. And if the power might come back on fairly soon, we wouldn't mind being here for a day or two without power. I've got some battery backup systems that would probably get us through at least 2 days. Kind of thinking I need to upgrade those and get some modular battery add-ons so the battery capacity is much bigger than what I've got right now. But that's a topic for another video. What I want to do today is just take a more thorough look around the property, see what we lost, see what the damage is, and look at the things that worked out well for us. The house and the shop survived, so we have those. We can move back in as soon as we've got power. And I can go back to work in the shop as soon as I've dealt with some of the destruction around here and feel like I have the time and the mental capacity to get back into the shop. Now this little carport is one I'm kind of surprised survived because it just kind of sits out here and doesn't get a lot of maintenance around it. This has the zero-turn riding lawnmower, the DR brush mower, an ATV, and some other parts and things left over from other projects that really don't matter. But that zero-turn riding lawnmower is one of the reasons our house survived, because we could cut the grass short on much of the property, at least the things within 100, 150 feet of the house. We were able to maintain fairly well. And I think it's the reason that this survived, because every time I cut the grass somewhere else, I run it around this building a few times. So the grass was pretty short right next to this building. Pardon me, I'm actually distracted by a squirrel, and I'm really glad to see some animals around here still. Seen a couple of deer, another squirrel up there. So some of the wildlife did survive. Hopefully there'll be enough of a rebound to keep them healthy for years to come, but we're just going to have to see. Now this little shed over here is one that I'm really not heartbroken to see it gone. It was one that was starting to have some rot and the roof wasn't in best shape and probably needed to be rebuilt. Had a lot of junk in it I just flat out did not care about. However, there were a couple of little wood stoves in there, and we kind of got a thing for old wood stoves. We've collected quite a few of them. One of them might have some salvageable parts. The others look like they're either cracked or they had sheet metal sides that are just all bent up. So I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do anything with those. This is also where the high lift jack was, and while it looks intact from what I can see under the rubble, I'm not actually cleaning anything up yet. If it has any heat-treated parts in it or gasket seals, anything like that, which I'm not sure they do, those are all going to be damaged. The heat treat won't be the same in a gear or a pawl, a cog, something like that. It doesn't stay as hard as the manufacturer intended. It's going to wear out and could make it unsafe to use. So all of the stuff like that is probably going to get thrown out. To be honest, I'm more disappointed about the apple tree that's next to this. It never produced apples real well, but it did help feed some of the wildlife. The bears really did appreciate the apples on our trees when fall came around and they were trying to bulk up for winter. And I always considered that the trees were really for the bears. Now this shed or carport is where Janet had her 1974 Chevy pickup. She was the original owner of this pickup several years ago. All the body work was done, the rust was repaired, it was repainted, new upholstery on the front seat, new dashboard. This was truly a pickup that turned heads when you drove it into town, and it was kind of her pride and joy. We should have tried to evacuate this when we left. We did evacuate with the car and the Bronco, and we should have left the Bronco at our friend's house outside the valley, turn around, come back. But at the time, that didn't seem like the wisest decision, although it was probably still several hours before this area was in any immediate risk. So this is a complete loss. It's really one of the things that is absolutely heartbreaking that we lost in this fire. We still have the 73 GMC, which is a better work truck, but it has some serious issues, and the transmission has been slipping for ages. And if it's going to be our only truck, and we're going to need a truck really bad as we clean up around here, that transmission's got to be fixed, rebuilt, replaced, something. We took it into town yesterday, left it at a transmission shop. That's one of our priorities in the cleanup, is to get that truck functioning. The other things that were in here were the old Cub Cadet mower and the Cushman Traxter. The Cushman Traxter is another thing that was really special. Janet loved that Traxter, and it's just a melted pile of fiberglass and aluminum, so there isn't anything there that is even salvageable. Luckily, we know somebody that has a Traxter that they never use, and while they don't actually want to sell it, they think they might store it here and let us use it, which is almost as good. I think for both the little shed and the carport, the thing that doomed them was grass that was still growing up close that I couldn't get to with the mower and should have come back with a string trimmer. And the carport had some things stored on pallets just outside of it. And of course those pallets burned, and all of that probably contributed to the fire spreading in there. There's never any guarantee, and I'm not a fire investigator. Those are just my initial thoughts. And of course the house survived. The only real damage I see to the house or anywhere near it was really the spoiled food in the refrigerators from being without power for a full 2 weeks. Again, I've got some battery backups, but I don't have enough battery storage in them to go that long. They are expandable, and I may look at buying some of those expansion batteries so we could have that set up in a future event. And it might carry at least one refrigerator through for a week, 2 weeks, something like that. But it's considerably expensive to buy all those battery modules. Might be worth it though. Now, what are some of the factors that went into the house surviving this fire? Of course, there's never any guarantees. The fire, the direction of wind, how intense it is, blowing embers, all factor into this. That we did a lot of things to help improve our odds of surviving some of those things. Probably the most important thing is that we have a driveway all the way around the house that has nothing growing in it, so it provides a fairly good fire break. Some of the fire got across that, but it didn't advance real far. You can still see some spots of grass that survived that little bit of fire. And that's the other thing, is we keep the vegetation down inside that driveway. We do have a few deciduous trees. They tend to hold more moisture and are not as big a risk as the conifers, but they're still not right up next to the house. They don't overhang the house. They don't come up under the eaves. They're out about 10 feet in most cases at the absolute closest. So there's very few things growing around the house that put the house at risk. The areas in front of the house where we do have some natural grasses growing get mowed more regularly than everything else, and that's always my priority, is to keep that cut down. So there really wasn't any tall grass to spread a fire. It went through there a little bit, but you can tell it wasn't a real hot fire. Another thing we have is a fairly high concrete foundation, which actually wasn't our intent when we built the house, just the way things came out. We have a pretty high foundation, so even if a fire gets right up against the house, in most places it's got 2 or 3 feet of concrete before you get to the house. So it would have to be a really big fire with all the vegetation that isn't there before that becomes an issue. In some areas, especially around our deck area, we have poured concrete, so there's about an 8-foot concrete apron around the house, so that can't burn. and that really helps protect that deck. And I think I want to do that all the way around the house. Concrete, brick, pavers, flagstones, something like that that isn't combustible, to guarantee nothing can grow, within 3 to 5 feet of the house. That really would help to protect it. And our deck, the biggest section of deck anyways, is screened. So embers couldn't blow into that deck. It would hit the screen and it wouldn't get into the deck and fall off, land on that concrete, and that would help protect it. So there are a lot of things that have gone into just right around the house. A lot of other fire mitigation around the property that all plays into it. But most of the effort was to protect the house, and I think it paid off. Of course, the winds were probably in our favor, and the firefighters would have come up here immediately after the fire, put out hot spots, and dealt with any small issues. But if the fire had decided to take the house, there wouldn't have been anything they could do at that point. This was Janet's sheep wagon, another one of those things that we really had plans for. We're going to fix it up, make it really nice. Looked like a fun project, but we hadn't gotten around to it. There was probably some grass growing up pretty close to it. It was something else that probably didn't get mowed around or have the string trimmer run around as often as it should have. And of course, it was on a wooden wagon bed and it had some wood framing. So it was not the easiest to protect thing in the world. If it had been sitting in the middle of a big concrete pad, probably would have done a lot better. But it is a total loss. The big value in that is really the sheep wagon itself and all the memories that it had. Now, we had high hopes that the shipping containers would protect things in them from the fire. Again, there's no guarantees with any of this stuff, but the shipping containers themselves aren't in too bad a shape, at least the majority of the shell. But these were sitting up on railroad ties so that we could level the spot. Pretty standard way to install shipping containers. And that meant there was a space under them, and the floor on these is wood. So if fire got into those railroad ties and then into the wood floor, everything in the shipping container was vulnerable at that point. And once that floor burned through, there would have been plenty of air. These were just big incinerators. There's probably nothing salvageable in either of these shipping containers, which is too bad because there were lots of family heirlooms in these containers. Had things that were my grandmother's, Janet's grandparents, things that came out of both Janet's parents' house when we moved out of that, and out of my parents' house when my mom moved into an apartment. And there were lots of family memories stored in both of these containers. There was a skin-on frame canoe that I built years ago in one of these. It's completely gone. And the 2 recumbent trikes, which we really splurged on. They were high-dollar recumbent trikes, probably about top-of-the-line stuff, and they are melted down so that it is hardly recognizable that they were ever in there. The frames are just completely gone, and I don't think that's something we'll replace. We haven't been riding them as much as we would like. Would never have parted with them because we still like to get out on them when we could, but I don't think we're going to be able to justify reinvesting that kind of money in the trikes when there's so much other damage that we're going to have to reinvest in. So there's a lot of loss here. I don't know what we're going to do with these shelves. The floor's burned out, and the supports for the floor are all warped and twisted. I'm tempted to put them on a concrete pad and pour concrete level in there over the warped, twisted metal and just make it concrete. Anybody ever wants to move them in the future, be really mad at me. Well, it's getting awfully close to noon today. We've been up here kind of inventorying what we remember being in all these structures, what was lost, about what the value of this stuff is. Took hundreds of pictures of everything, and then I started the video. But it's starting to get hot. There isn't as much shade up here as there used to be. And I think I'm going to take a break. We're going to call this a part 1 video. We'll pick it up with part 2 and look at where the wood shed and the other shed were, as well as looking at the shop and why the little shop, the containers up there survived. Then there's a few other things, as well as the cabin to take a closer look at. But you already know, if you watched the last video, that the cabin project did not survive. Now, I have had lots of offers, people to come help, people that have trucks, trailers, skid steers, chainsaws, all of that kind of stuff. And I would like to accept all of those offers, but right now we just don't have our heads wrapped around what needs to be done. A lot of these things, we don't just want to shovel all the debris out. We want to pick through it and see if anything actually survived. Things that survive a fire like this can have special memories. And I know Janet's got some things from a house fire many, many years ago before we ever met that survived that are a little rough around the edges, but they're precious things. They're memories that she gets to hold on to of the life before the fire. So we don't just want a bunch of people up here shoveling stuff into dumpsters and throwing it all away. We want to be a little bit more meticulous. I'll probably take some people up on those offers, but I'm not in a big hurry to do that. None of this stuff is going anywhere in the next few days. We've got months to deal with it. Some of it won't get dealt with till next year. Probably one of the highest priorities is going to be replacing the wood splitter so we can replace all the firewood we had split to heat the house this winter, because now that firewood is gone. I got to start that project all over again. Also going to have to replace the chainsaws because they're gone. But we'll see all that when we get up to where the woodshed used to be. As always, thank you for taking time to watch the videos. It means a lot, and it really helps if you watch the videos start to finish. Give it a thumbs up, leave a meaningful comment. All of that helps with engagement, and it means YouTube will push the videos out to more people, which means I might earn a little bit more ad revenue to help cover the cost of all of the recovery that we're going to have over the next couple of years. But for now, we'll see you for the next video.